Thank you for plugging into this Family Life News podcast, streaming issues-driven, family-focused news.
And welcome back to another edition of Issues in Education. Mondays during the Noon Report, we spotlight the issues impacting our schools with the good Dr. Ralph Kerr at the Teaching and Learning Institute. Ralph, just 1 week to go till Christmas. I hope you're ready, friend.
Ho, ho, ho. I am ready.
Here he comes down the chimney. Watch out.
Yeah.
Hey, Ralph, Pennsylvania's Governor Josh Shapiro is going to sign soon, if he hasn't already, a bill that would permit Pennsylvania schools to adopt a 4-day work week. Shorter work weeks or longer school days, whichever way you want to go. You've been a fan of this. Explain how come.
Well, I really have been going back quite a ways. There's been some experimentation with this in different parts of the country. And what we found is there are some really good advantages to doing it. For instance, school buildings would be closed on the 5th day that, particularly here in the Northeast, could result in some potential energy savings. The staff would be off, obviously, on the 5th day each week, although their work day would be longer. And then on the disadvantages, as I said, you got a longer work day, and that could lead to some productivity decrease on the part of teachers and the staff as well as the students. The community wouldn't have access to the building on that 5th day then for various events that they might want to hold. And finally, the district would have to do a really good job of communicating that it's just not another day off, but that the days have been extended. I will say there's a competing bill in Pennsylvania that I am not supportive of at all. Somebody has proposed that the work week just go from 40 hours to 32 and everybody keep the same pay. I would not support that. I think you got to make up the time. If you can do it effectively in 4 days rather than 5, I am for it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how many Pennsylvania schools actually adopt a 4-day work week. I mean, it's one thing to pass the law. It's another thing to actually go that route. So we'll see if any of them take the governor up on this. Institutions of higher learning, Ralph, are reeling, as you well know, from a credibility crisis in light of recent remarks about anti-Semitism made by several Ivy League presidents. How can Christian colleges capitalize on this growing angst about indoctrination that's happening at so many schools these days?
Well, I think, first of all, you have to realize that according to the Bible, the Jewish people are God's chosen people. Whether we like that or not, that's what the Scripture says. So I think we have to be very careful when we're talking about anything that would be anti-Semitic. And I would just urge people that have further questions about that. I know you did a great podcast with President Lewis at Houghton University. That is available on your website. And I'm sure that if people dial that up, they would be able to hear more about the advantages for a Christian institution like Houghton University.
Yeah, you know, Houghton University, a private college there in Western New York, really bucking the trend. This is shocking to me. So many private schools in New York, Ralph, are shutting down. St. Rose in Albany, got a good friend who went there. It just announced that this June it will be no more. Medaille in Buffalo, I used to play against Medaille when I was playing basketball at Houghton. They're no more. Casanova in Central New York, it's no more. These schools are shutting down, Ralph. Why is this happening?
Well, it's happening mostly because of money. That's the biggest issue, but it comes down to less students. But colleges and universities are really afraid to make any adjustment to the student-teacher ratio. When faculty and staff make up at least 80% of your costs, if you continue with the same number of faculty and staff and you have less students, so in other words, you have less income, that's going to be a problem and it's going to be inevitable. And then in some institutions, there are just some questionable financial practices that have gone on. And unless you have a big endowment like Harvard or places like that, you just cannot exist unless you watch your finances very carefully and make the necessary adjustments as time goes by.
Gotcha. I love this next story. Henfield High School in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, not in our listening area, but a good issue. It's offering an officiating course to high school juniors and seniors, how to become a referee for sporting events. Ralph, what's your reaction to this story?
I think it's a great idea. I'm just concerned that unless you put them right in front of parents in a gymnasium, I don't think they'll have the real experience, which is really tough. Parents are not the most gracious people when it comes to the referees. So in concept, I think it's a great idea, but I hope that the experience would include some time in the gym in a real-life situation, because that would be an important factor for these folks making that decision to become a referee.
And it's so important. So many districts now can't find refs or officials for sporting events, so they've, unfortunately, it's really sad, they've had to cancel sporting events or move them around just because there's just not enough referees anymore.
That's true, and more of that to come unless somebody finds a way to get more referees into the training and into the games.
Gotcha. Finally, it's been a while since we talked about this, but there's a representative in Pennsylvania. We spent a lot of time in the Commonwealth today, but Representative Joe Adams wants to make cursive writing mandatory instruction in grade schools. He points out, hey, you look at the Declaration of Independence, you look at the U.S. Constitution, that's written in cursive. Do you support this effort from the representative there in Pennsylvania?
Well, I think it's an interesting concept. Certainly, cursive writing is rarely used because of technology, and lots of people say, let's just focus on the technology because that's how people communicate today. On the other hand, if you know cursive and you don't use it, you can lose it. I was doing our Christmas cards this week, and what I found was, boy, my writing is getting worse and worse. It used to be pretty good, but it's really loud here right now.
Gotcha.
So other benefits would be that it does contribute to your flow of thought, helps focus on the content, gets your entire brain working, and even can improve some motor control for some students and make you a better speller because you have to think about what you're going to write.
So I had read, and correct me if I'm wrong, those who learn cursive also do better in other academic areas as well. Is there any truth to that?
There is some research that does show that, yes. It does make you a better learner in terms of your test scores.
All right, and Ralph is going to get out some more Christmas cards and start working on his cursive writing. But while he's doing that, if folks want to learn more about what is the Teaching and Learning Institute anyway, why do you exist, Ralph? Where can they find you online?
They can find that at simply whyrun.org, whyrun.org. And by the way, Merry Christmas to everybody.
Merry Christmas, Ralph. We'll talk to you in 2024.
There you go. All right.